Dun, dun, dun. We made it. Hey there, everyone. Renee Funk with Leadership from the Heart. Oh, am I excited today, Elizabeth.
I know. This is kind of fun. It's kind of like the gang's all back in town, right? So I'm excited about this conversation today, and I love seeing you guys. How are you, Jill?
Hi there, friends, tribe, soul sisters.
Jill Leberknight. I am not sure if I am more nervous because we're all friends today. Like, it's a little nerve-wracking interviewing and sharing conversation with your friends, especially when your friends are this talented.
But we're just having a conversation. So we'll just pretend that the world's not watching and we're just having our typical tribe conversation that we're so lucky to have.
Well, will it help you if I think that you're going to hear some stories today that you've never heard before. So this may be new. There might be some new discoveries today, Renee.
Well, you need to introduce yourself because we can't introduce you in the way that you can. So tell everybody who you are, a little bit of your background, and you're full of stories. So we can't wait to dig in.
Wow. Okay. So I was thinking about that today. And the reality is my background is in theater. I am a performer. I am a trained actor. And no matter where I am, when people ask me that question, there is a part of me that always has a muscle memory. Have you ever heard of muscle memory? When your muscles, your memory, physically, you have a memory of an experience in the past. So for me, I have this muscle memory of stepping onto the stage and the lights going down and the spotlight going on and a song emerging, the monologue where I tell the audience, who I am or what I want or a song. So for some reason, whenever I'm in a business or professional setting and people say, tell me about yourself, there is this muscle memory of taking the stage and music playing. And years ago, when I was teaching at a girls' boarding school in DC at Foxcroft, I had the opportunity to play Cassie in a chorus line. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie or the musical Chorus Line, but Cassie is the star dancer. And there's this moment where she, steps forward from the line and is talking with the director. And the spotlight comes on her and she says, God, I'm a dancer dances, and I just I feel like there is this part of me that just wants to break into song. So I won't do that today.
Well, you just did. And I was waiting for this. As soon as you said that, I was like, she's going to break into song. And so we got a little bit of it. This is your day. You can break into song as much as you want. That's
I know. Well, I have props here. I always have props and folks will learn. But I am a classically trained actor, singer, dancer. That's my background. I am a lifelong teacher, former high school drama teacher, and now I am a community teacher and a real estate teacher. I'm a real estate agent in Austin, Texas. I'm a community servant serving on community boards and arts boards in Austin, Texas. I'm a mom. I'm a Donnie and Marie fan, as my friends know, but I'm an artist. I still, at the core of who I am, I consider myself a creative, and I have had the wonderful opportunity to enter into a profession in a field where I get to define how I realtor. I can consider myself, a creative realtor. I've built my business so that I'm teacher Jill and servant Jill. So that's a little bit about me.
I love that. And it's so fun because this business is great anyway, and the people that we get to encounter. But like you said, we can create whatever path we want that's authentic and true. And that's one of the things when you think about Jill, Renee, don't you think authenticity and genuine? Like those are the first two words I think of, and definitely creative. But she's one of the authentic person or people you will ever meet and come across. And so we're just blessed that we have you in our world. And we get to have a lot of Jill whenever we need a lot of Jill.
And let's face it, one of my
knows it all.
Wait, were you at Walgreens recently? Isn't that
Renee, you're the only one that's guessed that. I got this at Walgreens, but I've trained as a clown in graduate school, because that's why I'm in Austin, Texas. I came down to get my MFA in acting at the University of Texas at Austin, and we had classic clown training. And when I saw this at Walgreens, I'm like, I don't have my clown nose. So I got my Walgreens little clown nose. Anyway.
One of the, well, actually, I'll say two of the things that I love most about you, Jill, is the fact that you break out into song from time to time, whether it's on our Voxer messages in our group chats or live on social media. I love the Jill breaking out into song. And the other thing that I love about you is that you are one of our friend and colleagues that lead the way in such a fine way with a servant heart. And so you've always been an inspiration to myself and so many others in that. People may not realize when I first met you, it was in one of your video classes. And I still to this day remember just, oh, Jill, you just inspire. And a teacher is a really good way to describe you, because you teach.
Yeah. Bigger than life. So,
but I didn't always imagine myself as a teacher. I wanted to be on Broadway. I wanted to be a Broadway musical theater star. And that's what I went to school. I went to a performing arts high school in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and studied dance and theater. And then I went to Penn State to train in theater, and just enveloped my whole world into musical theater and theater training, classics. And through that journey, I did discover that I wanted to teach, because I had opportunities at Penn State to teach younger students, to teach in the summer in my community and at State College. But really the big moment happened to me in my life. It was my senior year at Penn State. And, I'm, as you guys have known, but folks that might be tuning in today, I am very achievement oriented. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. And I had an opportunity. I was working with the head of the department, Carol Brandt. She was the head of the theater department at Penn State. And she was also the president of the University Resident Theater Company, which is all the universities in the country that are a part of this coalition of theater training institutes. And she was the president. And I was sort of her little apprentice. And I was invited to join her in Philadelphia for a big conference. And I was attending sort of as her, like I said, apprentice, but had an opportunity to attend workshops. I mean, think of it like our real estate conventions, our brokerage conventions that we go to. But I was going as her sort of, second in command. And that year was a big year because there was a playwright actor that was the keynote speaker. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Anna Devere Smith. She is an actor, a playwright, a teacher, but she had just won major awards for writing a very controversial and profound documentary play that we went to see when I was at Penn State. Because we're up in the small states. I'm down here in Texas, so it's harder to explain that. But when you're up in Pennsylvania, growing up there, it's easy to hop up to New York City and see Broadway plays because it's only a 3 or 4 hour trip. But I had seen her perform this documentary play that she wrote, performed all the characters, and she was the keynote speaker. And I was going there to listen to this Broadway star that had won Tony Awards and Obie Awards. And she was just this unbelievably incredible woman. And I was going to see her keynote speech. And I'll never forget, I was in the audience that day, and she was speaking to a room full of college professors and theater educators, which I was starting to feel like that was what I wanted to do. And in her keynote speech, she said something that I will never forget. She described herself as a public servant. this is an actor. This is a director. And I had never imagined a director, actor, playwright being a public servant. What is that? And it was like Jill being theatrical, it was like a spotlight, came down on me, and I felt warm. And immediately I knew that there was something that I connected with, that idea of being a public servant. I grew up in a family. My grandfather was the longest serving borough councilman in Pennsylvania history. And he was serving in the House of Representatives, the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. And he served one term because he voted his conscience on a very political union topic and was voted out. And instead of retreating back home to his town in Johnstown, he decided to devote the rest of his life to his local community and served on boards and councils and the borough. In Pennsylvania, we have boroughs. So I know that's unusual for Texas. We don't have boroughs in Texas, but he spent his entire life devoted to community and local service. So there was something about hearing an art person describe herself as a public servant that all of a sudden I instinctually knew in that moment, well, that's who I am. I'm an artist, but I'm a public servant. And that kicked off a lifelong journey of kind of living outside of a typical box of, business person, teacher, the typical boxes that we want to put ourselves in. So I just wanted to share that story because it was a profound moment for me when I realized that I wasn't just going to be an actor. I wasn't just going to be a teacher, but I was going to be a public servant through my art. So I just want to share that story.
When you talk about being a servant and serving your community at a very high level, you do that better than most anybody I've ever seen or met. And Renee, I joke, I'm fortunate that I'm in the same market as Jill, right? And so I get a lot of Jill. But at the same time, I've gone to some of her teaching in her courses for the community, like truly adding value, truly helping those that she's surrounded by, and educating them to make sure that they have the tools to best represent what their needs are. And I have gone to some of these before in the community, and I sat back there going, I'm not worthy to be in this industry. Like, she really elevates our industry and what it means to serve and educate, right? Because we do that on a daily basis, but she takes it a step further. And when I've sat in, I guess, like elementary school cafeterias, and she's surrounded by people from all walks of life that are just tuned into what she's saying and what she's sharing, it pushes me to want to be better and be more like that. And she's really good at saying, well, Elizabeth, you have your gifts, I have my gifts. But it's fascinating to see. And yeah, you just are so dynamic and engaging, Jill, and you truly lead with your heart. And it's amazing to be a part of that and to watch and just to kind of be in your world. So the people that are around you and that you're serving are so incredibly blessed to have you in their circle.
Oh, well, thank you, Elizabeth. I wasn't expecting to hear things. I was ready to teach and share and creatively brainstorm today. So you're embarrassing me.
Oh, sorry.
Talk about something else.
We're still going to get into that, but we adore you and have just been so inspired by you always. So it's important to share that. Jill, what advice do you have for whether we're talking to realtors or we're talking to really any industry? Because you've done such a beautiful segue, and you have synergy between storytelling and being a realtor. So what does that picture look like, and why is it so important for a realtor, for example, to know how to be a storyteller in their business?
That's a great question, Renee. I call myself a story scientist. Elizabeth has heard me talk about this book all the time. It's here with me. I always have my stack of books that have inspired me, but this book changed my life. There is life before Ishmael and life after. And, as you know, all of my formal training and education is in theater, in acting. But I'm a builder, I'm a creator. And when I was building my business, I'll be honest, I got really tripped up in the pitfalls of seeing how other people do things and just immediately feeling as though I had to do things that way. I think it's it's a natural part of our human nature to want to fit into the story that is around us. And, you know, the Ishmael book and the journey that I've been on to really dissect and examine and question the stories that we all live in, the many, many stories that we all live in, has led me to, you know, every now and then get to a point where I have to remind myself, what story am I living in? Whose story am I jumping into? And the reality is, the honest reality is that I've been very, very fortunate to have a business partner in my husband who has reminded me, like the first time that I went to do a video, and I tell this story often, I have all this background in theater and acting and 8 years performing on a PBS TV show. I was like, I'm ready for this. I was an early adopter of video in 2010. And I was like, I am ready for the camera. And so Damon, our first video shoot, I was out at a listing and I was all dressed up, and he turned, you know, it's not like he said action, but he's like rolling. And I went into this, here we are at this listing and look at here. And I just was presenting this very sophisticated, grand persona. And Damon stopped and he's like, what's happening? Where did you go? Where's Jill? I was like, what do you mean? I am trying to talk I was like trying to be a news anchor, you know, like very, like I said, sophisticated. And he's like, no, let's stop this. Okay. And then he just started, because he's a director, he's a filmmaker, and he just coached me in the right way to remind myself to be me. And that was the day that Agent Jill was born. Agent Jill is quirky and silly and fun. And, you know, the theater person that you've gotten to talk with already today, I like to play. I'm very passionate. And so honestly, if I can tell you, the storytelling that has emerged has really emerged. It's though I had to be reminded. I was so trained in storytelling, but when I stepped into business and real estate, I forgot a lot of what I knew, and I had to be reminded. I had to, in the process of building a business, I had to be reminded, who am I? Well, what kind of business do I want to own? Oh, well, do I have to be like her? Oh, I don't. Oh, and I'm going to go take a class, and I'm going to go read a real estate book, and I'm going to, you know, read Jennifer Allen Hagedorn's Sell with Soul. Oh, you mean I don't have to be a Lexus driving, you know, fake fingernail, fancy realtor? I can just be me in my little Subaru Forester that just teaches in the community. I had to just rediscover that. And that's really been my journey of sort of reminding myself that I'm in a business, in any business. I don't think it's real estate specific, but we have the authority and the permission to draft whatever story we want to draft in our lifetime, as moms, as teachers, as neighbors. So I just think right now in the world, the crisis that we're in all the different areas of our current world, we're in this perfect time to ask ourselves, what story are we living in? Whose story have I been living in? Am I aware of the story that I have been taught about my neighbors, my community, my fellow citizens? And I can redesign and reauthor that. So
your story is relatable, right? Because when you're living the story that's true to you, people can relate to that. People can relate to Jill, who's driving her little Subaru or what have you, right? I mean, they're not intimidated, or you're not trying to be somebody you aren't. And you and I've had a lot of those conversations before, right? Because we get in our or we create our own story that's maybe not true, maybe not authentic. But are you living who you are, being just being you? And people can either love that or they can go find somebody else. But you're relatable and you're going to attract those people, right? We always say your vibe attracts your tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And attracted incredible business when you, because I knew you way when you were starting to build your business up and you weren't really being who you were. But when you changed that, look at what you're doing now.
And another a part of that journey, Elizabeth and Renee, was also falling in love with what I did and not being embarrassed by it. And let me explain. You know, I was a school teacher. You know, when you go to a party, I wasn't making a lot of money, but boy, when you go to a party and someone says, "What do you do?" I teach. There is some pride in that. There's sort of some value and some weight to I serve the children, you know, like and I felt good talking about the teaching that I did. And then when I became a realtor, there was a part of me that was a little embarrassed. I didn't have that same pride that I was doing something of value for my community. And I work with a wonderful lender here in Austin, Texas, Melanie Taliaferro. And years ago, I noticed that Melanie, whenever she talked to clients, she would always say, "I love what I do. I love my job." You know, when people would say, "I'm sorry I'm bothering you after hours, and I'm sorry, and I must be the worst client that you've ever had," which they all say that, and they're all not that. I mean, it's just a stressful thing, buying and selling a home. But I listened to Melanie say over and over again, "I love my job. I love what I do." And I started to digest that. And I started to give myself permission to think differently about what I was doing as a realtor. Because in real estate, you know, there are a lot of classes about door knocking and cold calling and scripts and sales. I mean, in Texas, we're called a salesperson, but I wasn't looking at the work that I did as sales. I was looking at it as service and education. And when I gave myself permission to be proud of who I was and the kind of business I wanted to own, that changed everything too, because then I could share my love. Then it was about serving the community. I mean, I could talk about public service, but I still had a little bit of shame about the industry that I was in. And I've come to sort of develop a whole new layer of pride in the realtors that work endless hours serving their clients and community. You know, I talk about the work that we do. I call myself a real estate doula. I don't know if you know what a doula is. It's sort of like a midwife. You know, the baby's got to be born. There's going to be some pain. There's going to be some stress, but the baby's going to come out, and it's my job to navigate you through that process.
I have never heard you reference that, but that's
really.
No, funny. Yeah, it's very funny.
Love that. That's so true. And guess what? The most beautiful thing is going to come out at the other side of it.
And I joke with my clients, look, yes, there's going to be pain, but just like a nurse or a doctor, we don't take it personally. We know exactly when you're going to be in pain. We know exactly when you're going to be stressed out. We've seen it before. We've seen everything. Cry, scream, cuss. We're going to bring the chocolate, the limeade, the margarita, or just we're going to be a listening calm ear, but we're going to navigate you through it. We're going to talk about the pain points, and we're going to get you to the other side. If you look at the definition of a doula online, the National Doula Association, it describes what we do as realtors perfectly. We, you know, safely deliver the baby, the transaction, and the family, the mother, you know, to the other side. Not of, you know, the other side of the transaction, the birth or the buying or selling of a home.
Friends, I've never heard you reference that, and I feel like it's one of those huge aha moments. That's the perfect explanation.
See, I told you you were gonna learn new things today.
And speaking of learning new things, I just got to say, so I got a really good reminder from our very dear friend Cheryl Hauk that for our audience, if you haven't had a chance yet, this is a must do, and that is go ahead and Google Jill and buttermilk biscuit. Can we talk about buttermilk biscuit? Because guess what? I think I sent you a video text recently of myself and Gavin, my 10-year-old, watching buttermilk biscuit on our TV, and we just couldn't stop. Thank goodness for YouTube.
Yes, I love to talk about buttermilk and the Biscuit Brothers. It will go down as one of the greatest experiences and projects of my life. So my husband is a filmmaker and a playwright and an actor and director. And his
award-winning, by the way.
And what?
Emmy award-winning.
Yes, the Biscuit Brothers. He won 2 Lone Star Emmys for the Biscuit Brothers. Yes. So his college roommate, Alan Robertson, was doing a live version of the Biscuit Brothers with his friend, Austin actor Jerome Schooler, at the Zach Scott Theater. And someone said, "Oh, you should turn this into a children's music CD." And so he was on, going out to LA to kind of explore the music, because Alan's a composer and lyricist, and it was all original music for their, live children's show. And while he was out in LA, sort of promoting it as a children's CD music product, someone said, "You should really turn this into a TV show. You should consider, some sort of, live format of this for film or TV." And my husband was back in Austin at that time, and he's a filmmaker and TV guy, spent years in the news industry. And so he's like, "Well, I have a camera. Why don't we make a show?" And so we made a pilot. At the time, I was unemployed because I, as many arts teachers, sometimes when schools need to balance their budgets, the arts teachers are the first to go. So my job had been eliminated at my the high school that I was teaching at in Austin, Texas. And so I had the opportunity to go, and I was going to be Bingo. I, was going to be Bingo, the little character in the show. But Jerome Schooler was like, "No, I think we need a girl. I think we need a girl." And not many people know this, but Jerome sort of created my character of Buttermilk Biscuit, strong as an ox, because I was able to carry heavy things, but sweet as pie. And we made this pilot. KLRU PBS Austin station picked us up, and we heard about the announcement to be on KLRU at Austin City Limits when we were performing. We were literally getting ready to go on to perform at Austin City Limits stage. And they were like, "Oh, and our new children's TV show that will be airing in the fall or in the spring." And Damon's like, "We haven't even started shooting yet." So we were backstage going, "Yes." But we, this was just 3 guys and a gal and a couple of friends. And, it was guerrilla style, YouTube style shooting, in our backyards, in our homes, on the streets, in our community. Willie Nelson was our narrator. Fun stories talking about meeting Willie and getting him to narrate some of the work that we did. But it aired on PBS for 8 years, 2 Lone Star Emmys. We taught music as a gateway to all types of learning. So we taught what harmony was as a music theory, but we also talked about how to live in harmony with our friends, our families, and our communities. So it was a really, really special project. But during that, I, gave birth to Sullivan. My real estate business exploded. So I would literally go from my office here, sitting here, doing contracts, to running across in the green screen in the playroom, which is right next door to me, in my pigtails and my buttermilk dress, and do videos. So many of the videos that you might see on green screen, I was, real estating in between all of that. So it was a fun time in my life.
Well, Renee, I've got to tell you, my kids, they thought I was the coolest mom in the world because I was friends with Buttermilk Biscuit. They could care less, and we would be out on parades or what have you. And Jill and I were friends, so she'd come over and say hi to the kids, and they're like, "Oh," and they'd go back to school. My mom knows buttermilk, so I mean, it was such a great show, and my kids grew up on it too. And it's just fun that where we all are today. But,
a lot of the Biscuit kids are grown up, like Elizabeth's older son Trip. A lot of them are older now, but I've been proposed to by many a 5-year-old boy in Austin, Texas.
I have to say, I think that the show is coming back in the Funk household because I'm a fan. I love it, and I'm very grateful that we can watch it. Just saying.
Well, my husband is a puppeteer as well, and he manned the puppet Tiny Scarecrow on the show. So every now and then, Tiny Scarecrow will come out and do scenes at our house. So he's a special character in our home.
So fun.
I didn't know that you were also representing buyers and sellers at that time. Real estate on one room, and then Buttermilk Biscuit in another room. That's wearing many hats, Miss Jill. Many hats.
A lot of hats, but we do that as moms and as business people. We all wear many hats in our community. So that was just a unique one. And I don't always share that with clients. Sometimes they find out sort of at the end of a transaction or after a transaction. And it's a little strange, a little disorienting to them.
I'm just saying, if I were you and I were out with customers and they had age-appropriate children who may like Buttermilk Biscuit, I would literally put it on the phone and say, "You might like this show."
There was a time when because it for 8 years it was on KLRU Austin every Saturday at 9:00. So oftentimes, and you'd be surprised. I mean, I wear glasses when I'm out professionally, but Buttermilk didn't have glasses. The whole Clark Kent scenario, and I had pigtails and a gingham dress and combat boots. And when you are on TV, oftentimes you'll get people, "How do I know you?" And you can tell they're doing that look of like, you look really familiar. So, years ago, I used to have that conversation when there were small children, but I also had to learn that people didn't always want to trust their largest financial investment to a children's performer. So I would weigh that very carefully and find the right time when I had an opportunity to share my expertise. So they knew absolutely that this was my full-time job. I was a volunteer. I never got paid for the Biscuit Brothers. That was a purely community service volunteer project. And it wasn't about, it was, we had one small sponsor, Scott and White Hospital here in Central Texas. It was really a labor of love that the three families, the Robertson family, the Schooler family, and the Brown Leberknight family did for 9 years. So it was, PBS public television isn't a highly lucrative business.
We've had a lot of conversations about your Daydream initiative. You, myself, Elizabeth, Cheryl, and where we got to really take a deeper dive in is when you did the Daydream Initiative presentation at the Icon mastermind that we had in Tampa. Can you talk about why the Daydream Initiative is so important?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Daydream Initiative really came out of a big burnout period for me in real estate. I mean, Renee and Elizabeth, you understand that we can get very transactional, and our work is dependent on when inventory emerges and when clients emerge. It's not something we can control and schedule out. And sometimes we have really, really busy seasons. And I had come through a phase where I had built a team and had trained a lot of new buyer agents and was working a lot of clients, very little time off from work, very little time with family, very little creative time. I was, the business was built, there was creativity in the initial stages of building, but at some point you get to a level where the systems, and Elizabeth, I love systems. The systems were built, the templates were built, the website, the creative, the video, the routines. And now I was just real estating 24/7, no vacations, no downtime. And I hit this burnout, and I didn't really fully know that it was burnout at the time. I just kept telling my friends and my husband, all I want to do is, I just had this chair in our living room that faced the back sliding glass door and this beautiful oak tree in our backyard. And all I could do day after day was stare at this tree. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to sit and stare. And I'm achievement oriented and I'm goal oriented. And at the end of every day, what have I accomplished? The inner monologue in my head was, What did I accomplish? What am I doing? What did I get done today? And when I didn't have action items, I would beat myself up. And this cyclical routine happened for several months. And after this time of just sitting and staring and watching, all of a sudden, ideas started to bubble up. And I saw that I would then get busy into work again, and then I would have some downtime where I was just sitting, and it might have been staring at the oak tree, or it might have been a conference. I really love conferences. I love listening to thought leaders, listening to podcasts, reading business books. Whenever I had a little bit of time to sit and daydream, all of a sudden ideas and creativity started to rise. And I realized that I'm a creative person. We're all creative people. We are creative by nature. It's our human nature to create and think. And I just wasn't allowing and wasn't carving out time in my life for daydreaming. And so I started to give myself that time and give myself that permission to just think about what kind of the things that I thought about when I was daydreaming about what kind of business I wanted to own. The very things that I talked about when I was like, oh, I'm building my business. Well, I had to kind of go through that all over again. And through that journey, I started to, my husband's a playwright and an author, and I was watching him, and I happened to have a lot of writer clients at the time as well. And I was listening and hearing about their process, which was always very magical and mystical to me. I'm like, don't you just like sit down? Don't you just have an idea and sit down and map it all out and make it all happen? And they would all describe to me, oh no, it's a lot of, I go on walks. It's a lot of mulling over. It's a lot of thinking. And I realized that the life that we're in right now, where we're going, hustling, churning, we are not leaving room for daydreaming. And so I started reaping the benefits of carving out time to dream about whatever, about vacations, about new initiatives at work. I started deeply studying the creative process and how painters and writers and musicians and sculptors and dancers, how they come to the creative process. And the reality is, it's all in the initial stage is all daydream. Our scientists, our inventors, they spend an enormous amount of time in daydream. And the reality is, historically, we've romanticized that. And we don't do that anymore. Think about the scientists and the composers and our ancestors from hundreds of years ago, when they would lay on the hill and look at the clouds and go on picnics. That's a romantic story and narrative that we live with, but we really don't live with that kind of leisure. And I don't want to say the word leisure as in unproductive time, but breathe room to just allow your thoughts to float. And over a year's time, I really tracked and monitored the discoveries, the creative product of giving myself permission. Because remember, I'm achievement oriented. I want to be on that list. I want to achieve that thing. I want to have that award. I want to make that, the top whatever. But the more I gave over to allowing my thoughts to float, the more ideas I had to share that made me a happier, more connected mom, business owner, realtor, community member, because I had my creativity back. And Renee, I got to tell you, I just think that right now, I personally think daydreaming is our path out of this crisis right now. Did you all hear some of the stories when we were early in the pandemic about the food chain, the food production that had halted, and farmers were needing to destroy their crop or
the milk,
euthanize their pigs or chickens.
Yeah.
And did you hear the beautiful stories about the high school kids and the college kids, the young people who were like, well, I'm going to figure that out. I'm going to sell those eggs. I'm going to figure out a way to distribute those eggs to food banks. People have this time right now. They're sitting around. They're not attending 75 in-person meetings and going out. They have this embedded daydream time right now. And so people are starting to think through things. And then you add on this second tsunami that hit, which is the racial crisis that we're all sort of, thinking about our social contracts that we have and re-examining what, how are some people treated in our country and our neighbors? I really think that the daydream, creative questioning is our path forward in business, in economics, in our communities, everywhere. If we just give ourselves room to ask two questions: why? And what if? What if? What if we didn't have to sell our food this way? What if our health insurance, I am absolutely not like wanting to go down any sort of political conversation here, but what if there are so many wonderful stories in history where our society decided to go, what if our elderly were cared for? And Social Security, was created. What if we have a founder of our very own real estate company that said, what if we just didn't go into a real estate brick and mortar office? What if we didn't waste our money on that? We, the three of us and all of our colleagues at eXp Realty, are living the reality of creative daydreaming. I'm not saying that Glenn Sanford sat around and stared at an oak tree for a year like I did. That daydream possibly happened much quicker. But think about it. And right now, it's completely accepted and normal. But we all know that when that daydream first exploded, that was weird, right? That was weird and uncomfortable. But it made us grow and stretch. So I think it is, the Daydream Initiative is really just a project. It was to increase personal and workplace creativity. We have workshops and speaking, to organizations. And we were in the process before the pandemic hit of creating a summit where we're bringing together entrepreneurs and scientists and inventors with arts people so that we could all collaborate and work together to increase our creativity, because scientists and entrepreneurs and inventors, they need to identify their narrative and their story so they can sell their product. And that product might be a vaccine for COVID-19.
Yeah. I have a question. I'm busting to ask both of you and our audience.
Yes.
Was I the only one who grew up in an environment, and not just in my household, but more specifically in schooling or anywhere I went as a child, the word daydream had a negative connotation?
Absolutely. Because I think that's the era that we grew up in. I agree with you, Renee. So my brother, he's 4 years older than me. And, so he was growing up in the 70s. I'm a girl of the 70s as well. And that was an era when people were starting to identify ADHD, attention deficit disorder, and Ritalin was a big, and I'm not an expert on ADHD. So I want to make sure I preface that. But I do remember that era where, and I think that's a part of a cultural change and shift, that we were wanting people to be focused and achievement oriented. Again, it's part of the story that I just happily adopted and accepted and trotted along to do my achievement stuff. But yes, when we were growing up in school, the daydreamers were the ones that had focus issues. They had focus issues. And interesting enough, my in-laws are retired educators. I mean, they're 50 years in public and private school education. And there's wonderful new research emerging right now about doodling, about the power of note-taking. And like, there's this whole science behind, you don't have to note-take in the traditional way that maybe the three of us were taught and trained. They're bringing back more creative tools and techniques of doodling. That doodling is now a way. Are you seeing the pencil coloring books everywhere? Do you go to the spas where there's the coloring book with the pencils? There's a spa that I've gone to in Austin that has this meditation room. And in that room, there's all these colored pencils and these coloring books, because doodling and drawing and painting and the creative performing and visual art practices are starting to come back in to the mainstream of innovation. I think even at the college level, we're starting to, I mean, this was years ago when colleges and when businesses like Google and Facebook started recognizing that a liberal arts degree was actually what they were looking for. They were looking for a well-rounded liberal arts educated individual. And in my theater community, that's when I was starting to see a lot of my theater friends from Penn State and UT being hired by top corporations across the country because of their project management, their artistic background. So there is this, you're so spot on, Renee. There is this changing perception of creative imagination and seeing the correlation between science and invention and new visions and new technology. It's very much, our art and science are the same thing, just on opposite sides of the coin. If you spend enough time with scientists, they're just as dreamy as arts people, but they just go about it in a more methodical manner. So good question.
So I know you've been working on this for a long time, you and Damon. How do people find out about the Daydream?
Absolutely. So I failed to mention that the Daydream Initiative is a project that I'm working on with my husband. So my husband, as I've communicated, is a playwright, filmmaker, director. So we're combining our backgrounds in the arts to help increase the story of creative nourishment in our personal and our workplace lives. So we have a website, thedaydreaminitiative.com. You can reach out to us there. Like I said, before the pandemic, we were working on some in-person summits to bring people together. So now we're kind of restructuring and reimagining how we might want to do that, and exploring creative pursuits like a book and some content that people can access. But we do this together. It's the Daydream Initiative, all one word.com.
I'm ready. Sign me up.
Well, I mean, I do. I want to challenge you. I know when the four of us, our friend Cheryl joins us in our little EXP Realty tribe, I'm always reminding and encourage you guys to carve out creative time, and ask the question, why am I doing this? What if I did it a different way? And it can be as simple as 10 or 15 minutes in the morning. And in terms of my story science work that I'm doing, that I've always been exploring is just really being acutely aware of all the stories that you have unconsciously stepped into. And I think as we're walking through this, racial discussions right now, a lot of us are all of a sudden beginning to realize, oh, I didn't realize a bias or a story that I was living in, and it doesn't have to just be about, race. I think, as women, we've stepped into stories. As moms, I could talk about that a lot. We have these stories that society has created for us that I think, as I was talking about before, this book really forced me to realize that we kind of walk in and inherit sometimes stories that we don't even realize that we're walking into, that it's just society or our families or our schools have had around for generations. And it really has, after I read this book, I realized, oh, I don't have to live in that story. And like one of them is like in the book, Ishmael, the author talks about the agricultural story of when we decided to lock up all the food. When did we, like, there was a point in history as a society, as man, where we locked up the food and the food wasn't available for anyone to just grow and have. And all of these stories are starting to emerge right now as we face this global crisis of there are people that are struggling to have water right now. Well, when did we step into a world where having water wasn't a right? And so I think as entrepreneurs, and I think realtors are entrepreneurs, and I think that we have a great sense of how to reimagine and redefine things. And I think there's opportunities to reauthor stories, as you know, in the social contracts that we have in our communities, in our neighborhoods, in our families. And I just think we're going through a lot of reflection right now, and it's a great time for daydreaming and rewriting stories. I mean, really rewriting them. And like I said, the three of us know right here what it's like to step into a really strange new story and the power that can be with that. Anyway, I can get a little chatty.
I love you so much.
That's why when Jill probably could have carved out 2 hours, but we'll just have.
Okay, I know we're almost there, but like, does Teacher Jill need to give homework assignments? Because I kind of talked about them. You know, I want people to ask themselves this week, why? What story am I living in? What story am I living in? Am I living in my
what if?
Why and what if?
Yeah.
Why and what if? And feel free to. There's a journal with me beside my little sitting spot where I look at my oak tree. And I have a special one that's for my daydream thoughts, and have a pen and a paper nearby you so that you can be ready to answer the question or finish the line. There once upon a time there was a girl, and she, or once upon a time there was a boy and he, and then just start. What if you made the decision today to just enter a new story? Enter a new story. You can do that. I know it's super terrifying because I bring with it my perfectionism, I'm a people pleaser. Oh, but what if I, upset Elizabeth, or, I'm joking, Elizabeth, but like, what if I upset someone? What if I don't please someone? What if I don't, what if my son is disappointed with me? You tell yourself tons of stories that prevent you from just waking up tomorrow and starting a new story. Like, we all know that thoughts are powerful, right? Like, thoughts are really, really powerful. So what if we just put in really cool, exciting, bold story choices for ourselves? Can I also tell you something else? This might freak you out. So, I homeschool my son. Do you know what I wrote in my journal on February 24th? We were doing a creative writing exercise at our morning meeting, and we were daydreaming. We had a daydreaming writing exercise of, what would you like to do this year? What's one thing that you would like to do? And then we shared it with people. Do you want to know what I wrote? I said, I would find a way to spend a quarter of the time in a cabin without technology, just reconnecting with myself. Like, I literally.
When was this?
This was February 24th of this year. I literally, and I was telling Elizabeth, I just want to go unplug. I just want to go live in a cabin and have no commitments, and I can't go anywhere, and I can't go to meetings. And I just wanted to be isolated. Hello, pandemic.
Ask and you shall receive.
Weird, right?
Yeah. Okay, so what we've established is that we need to have Jill back because there's so much more depth to this. I see that Vicki Coleman, our dear friend Vicki Coleman, she's watching. We love you, Vicki.
Yeah.
We love you, Vicki.
She said, I'm almost in tears. Why and what if? I needed to hear this. You have inspired me. Thank you so much. We love you, Vicki. Here's the thing. We ask all of our guests this very important question. And I don't know if I've ever been on the edge of my seat as much as I have.
Well, I don't know if we have enough time, quite frankly, Renee.
I'll be brief. I'm an actor. I know how to fit things in. Bring it on, Renee.
We want you to answer exactly what will come to your mind. Agent Jill.
Okay.
What does leadership from the heart mean to you?
Leadership from the heart means, what it means to me is someone willing to step up and serve the greater good of others. It's not a title. It's not something that's given out. It's somebody having the courage to step up and serve the greater good.
That is an awesome answer and probably one of the shortest answers I've ever heard from Jill Leberknight.
I got my bell here. I didn't even have to do my fail button. I got the props here, ladies. I got the props.
One more prop. You must have one more in there.
Do I? You're going to get two.
Oh my goodness.
Always have a bowler hat and a tambourine. So, friends, go write your story. You can be whoever you want to be. I'm a successful business person and I'm a little silly and I serve my community and I do it with heart. And why not? Why not?
And we adore you so much. Absolutely.
I am a little teary-eyed. My heart is full. I've had goosebumps the better part of this hour. We love you, Jill Leberknight, very much.
I love you, ladies. Thank you. This is a wonderful initiative. This is also leadership, what you guys are doing.
We love you.
Step up. You serve the greater good. You ask questions. You learn from others. Service.
You're coming back, right? You'll come back and take a deeper
yes,
dive.
I have lots of assignments and exercises and activities. Absolutely.
But Jill get deep, so we might have to have her on more than one other time. So
can we get Damon and Jill together sometime?
Oh, that'd be good.
Oh, that would be really good because Renee, if you see those two together, it's opposites attract and they just complement each other. So it's kind of fascinating to watch. So
that's my husband, everyone, if you don't know, Damon Brown.
We need
Damon
to get
Brown and Jill Leberknight, you recently did a video, which I believe was produced during quarantine, which was brilliant.
Yeah.
The back and forth in the
he's like, guys, you need to know he's really the star. Like he is the mega star. Like I call him, the little frog that was in the cartoon that, he's really shy out and about, but at home, he's got the top hat and the cane and dancing. Jay Michigan Frog, or he's that. He is
insanely
talented, just extraordinary. And I'll work on pulling him out and getting him talking.
Please do. We would like him on Leadership from the Heart together with you.
Yeah, we'll plan on that. All right. I love you, ladies. I'm so glad I got to see you guys today. Thank you for sharing, Jill. Renee, my friend, I will see you soon.
Bye, ladies.
Bye, guys.
Bye.